when I was a teenager, my twin brother spread vicious lies about me, ultimately leading to my parents kicking me out of the house. Now, years later, I built a successful life for myself, and the same parents who abandoned me are suddenly reaching out, asking for money. Growing up, my brother and I were treated like opposites. While he was seen as the golden child destined for greatness, I was labeled the black sheep simply because I preferred sports and friendships over burying myself in books. My parents constantly compared us, making me feel like I was never good enough. On our birthdays, my brother had extravagant parties, while my celebrations felt like an afterthought. He had sleepovers whenever he wanted, but I wasn't allowed to invite friends over. The unfair treatment stung, but my grandmother was my one source of comfort. She would sneak me my favorite chocolates and sometimes slip me a little money so I could treat myself. As we got older, the favoritism turned into outright emotional abuse. My parents mocked my grades, belittled my interests, and refused to let me participate in extracurricular activities, despite my talent in sports, because they insisted I needed to focus on academics like my brother. No matter how hard I tried to prove myself, it was never enough. By my sophomore year, the punishments became even harsher. I once got grounded just for having Snapchat on my phone. My parents raged, accused me of betraying their trust, threw my belongings around, and even removed my bedroom door, all over something completely harmless. But my brother was the one who made everything worse. He took full advantage of our parents' bias, blaming me for things he did and making up lies to get me in trouble. He mocked my appearance, embarrassed me in front of my friends, and, worst of all, he twisted reality to turn everyone against me. His jealousy hit a breaking point on our 14th birthday. None of his friends showed up to celebrate with him, while mine took me out for ice cream. That day, I was genuinely happy, but for him, it was the final straw. He wanted revenge. So he started spreading rumors at school, making me out to be a spoiled brat. Then he took it even further, falsely claiming that I physically abused him at home, and since our parents already favored him, he knew they'd believe anything he said. To make his lies more convincing, he went to horrifying lengths, punching himself, giving himself bruises, even blackening his own eye. The next day, he'd walk into school showing off the self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence. At home, when our parents noticed the marks, he'd lie and say they were from playing football. The rumor spread like wildfire. Slowly, my friends began pulling away. First, they stopped chatting with me in the hallways. Then the invitations to hang out stopped coming. The people I thought I could trust started looking at me with doubt in their eyes. One day, I confronted my former best friend, desperate to understand why she had distanced herself. What she told me shattered my world. My brother had been poisoning everyone against me, telling them elaborate lies. Hurt and betrayed, I confronted him directly, demanding that he stop, but he only smirked and brushed me off, his indifference more terrifying than his lies. I wanted to tell my parents, but deep down, I already knew they wouldn't believe me. Then the rumors reached the school principal. I was called into a meeting, just me, my brother, and our parents. My heart pounded as I prayed that, in front of authority, he would finally admit the truth, but he didn't. Instead, he sat there and confidently painted me as a violent bully. He cried fake tears, claiming I tormented him when no one else was around. My mother clung to him, sobbing, while my father praised his bravery. I pleaded my case, insisting it was all a lie, but the principal wasn't convinced. With the school's strict zero-tolerance policy on bullying, he decided to make an example of me. I was suspended for 10 days. Tears streamed down my face as I begged him to reconsider, but he was unmoved. My parents dragged me home in a fury, humiliated by the ordeal, but instead of grounding me or yelling at me, my dad did something I never expected. He started packing my things. Confused and panicked, I begged him to stop, but he ignored me. My brother stood in the background, cold and silent, offering no help. Within minutes, my suitcase was in the foyer. Desperate, I clung to my father, begging him not to do this, but he pushed me away, his voice firm. A bully doesn't deserve to stay in this house. And just like that, I was thrown out of my own home. My grandmother arrived soon after. She gathered my things and led me to her car. Before we drove away, she confronted my parents, demanding to know how they could do this to their own child, but they refused to listen. I left that day with nothing but a broken heart and a determination to prove that I was more than the lies they believed. Now, at 28, I built a successful life for myself, and the same parents who abandoned me, they suddenly want to be part of it. They're reaching out, not to apologize, Not to mend our relationship, but to ask for money. They didn't believe in me when I had nothing. And now, they have the audacity to ask for something from me. I know my answer. And this time, I won't be the one left behind. My dad, resolute and fierce, confronted my parents, criticizing their treatment of me. He warned them against any further contact, threatening legal action if they continued to mistreat me. My mother attempted to deflect blame onto me, but my grandmother intervened with unwavering strength, defending me and emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve such cruelty. It was the first time I truly understood my grandmother's power. She refused to back down, standing firmly by my side and trusting my version of events. As I left our old home behind, I was overwhelmed by a deep sense of pain. No amount of encouragement from my grandmother could quell my distress. Sharing my brother's deceit with her brought me some comfort, knowing she believed in me when others did not. Returning to school after the suspension felt daunting. Each judgmental stare and whispered conversation felt like entering a lion's den. My brother ignored me, surrounded by those who believed his fabricated narrative that painted him as the victim of my alleged attacks. No matter how hard I tried to share my side, it seemed no one wanted to listen. Branded with an unjust label, I became an outcast, feeling the weight of judgment in every classroom and corridor. Loneliness became my constant companion. I attended classes, ate alone in the cafeteria, and then headed straight home, unwanted and uninvited. My parents never checked in on me, but my grandmother offered constant reassurance, reminding me that it wasn't my fault. I graduated high school with good grades, eager for college as a chance to start anew. Finally free from scrutiny, I made friends and discovered my passion for writing. I began freelancing to earn extra money, soon building a portfolio and securing clients. After graduating college, I chose to pursue writing full-time, enjoying the freedom it offered despite its challenges. Traveling as a digital nomad helped me heal old wounds, and my freelance career thrived, granting me both financial independence and personal fulfillment. I've seen so much of the world, yet there is still so much left to explore. The only person I considered family throughout all of this was my grandmother, whom I adored. She was saddened when I moved out, but she understood my need for independence. Despite my hectic schedule, I made it a point to be there for her whenever I could. I visited her on weekends, sharing meals and enjoying long conversations on the porch, discussing everything from childhood memories to recent events. I dedicated entire afternoons to helping her with household chores or accompanying her for leisurely walks in the local park. Recently, I completed one of the most important projects of my career. Although I can't mention the brand, I was incredibly fortunate to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After the project, I requested the team to leave positive reviews on my website, which they were more than happy to do. I took screenshots of their glowing feedback and posted them on my Instagram, knowing that working with this brand was a significant milestone. As expected, many fellow content writers reached out to congratulate me on my success and reposted my story to help spread the word. This newfound visibility led to messages from strangers needing assistance with their websites. Even some relatives noticed and reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, I received a call from my college principal, who had seen my achievements and invited me to give a seminar at the college about building a career as a content writer. Though I was nervous about public speaking, I decided to take a chance and accepted the invitation. Standing before eager faces, sharing my experiences and insights, I felt my life come full circle. In my speech, I recounted the struggles I faced and how hard I worked to sustain myself despite the hardships. Empowering others and contributing to the growth of the writing community felt incredibly fulfilling. My story began to resonate widely. Some clips went viral in Facebook groups, bringing me recognition for my hard work. Just last week, I was invited to appear on a local news channel. The show focused on the benefits of content writing, and they wanted me to share my journey and insights with their audience. I was nervous, but also excited about the opportunity. During the show, I talked about my experiences, the importance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post could open doors to incredible opportunities. The chance to inspire more individuals in the field was both humbling and exhilarating. When it aired, I shared clips on my Instagram, proud of the invitation to a TV show. This newfound visibility caught the attention of my relatives and cousins, who began to discover how well I was doing in my career. Because my parents had never mentioned me to anyone, they had no idea that I was working with popular brands and receiving invitations to TV shows. Word spread quickly within my family, and I guess my TV interview must have finally reached my parents' ears. Just a few days later, while working on another project, I silenced my phone. When I checked it after finishing my work, I was shocked to see 6 missed calls from my mom. It had been a long time since she had reached out. Confused, I hesitantly called her back, and she picked up immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and to my surprise, she began to congratulate me. My dad, likely sitting nearby, jumped into the conversation, asking about my life and well-being. I answered their questions casually, not thinking much of it until they inquired about my earnings. I told them it was none of their business. My dad responded that we were family, so I shouldn't feel shy about sharing my income. I simply told him I was doing well financially. Hearing this, my mom began to say how hard their life was lately, raising my suspicions. Our conversation unfolded like this. Mom, we're retired now, and we've wanted to renovate the house for a while. It's not in the best shape, but we have no savings left. Me, okay, Mom? Mom, your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview today, we thought maybe you could help us out with the renovations. Dad, after all, we're family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We could really use your help. Me, are you joking? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't spoken to me for years? I appreciate the congratulations, but I'm not helping you. My mom then accused me of being selfish, claiming I needed to support them as a family. My dad insisted that, as my parents, they deserved to be looked after and that this was the least I could do. I was infuriated, wanting to give them a piece of my mind, but then a thought struck me. Instead of simply arguing with them, I decided to teach them a lesson, one that would make them regret thinking they could mooch off me after all the mistreatment I had endured. I told my parents I would help them, if and only if they agreed to my demands. My dad, intrigued, asked what they were. Without hesitation, I replied. I laid out my demand. If my parents wanted my help, they had to publicly admit, in front of our family and friends, that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had tarnished my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate him the same way they had humiliated me, by believing his lies and manipulation. I demanded accountability for their actions and acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. My dad questioned the necessity of such an admission, while my mom insisted it was unnecessary and that we could discuss it privately, but I stood my ground. This condition was non-negotiable, a prerequisite for any assistance I would consider offering in the future. As the tension escalated, my dad raised his voice, asserting his role as my father and emphasizing my duty to help my family in need. My mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to do the right thing, reminding me of the years they spent raising me. Ironically, I found their sudden appeal for familial duty rather hollow, given their past actions. I reminded them that they had kicked me out, and it was my grandmother who had raised me, not them. They became increasingly agitated, but I told them firmly that if they wanted to reconnect and seek my financial help, they needed to acknowledge the truth publicly and ensure my brother faced the consequences of his actions. Since that conversation, my parents have been incessantly calling me, but I'm ignoring their attempts. I'm starting to regret calling them back that day. I've been reflecting on whether I would really be in the wrong if I chose not to help them at all. Update 1. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I've received have been overwhelming. It's heartening to know that I'm not alone during this time. I'm grateful that everyone agrees I shouldn't engage with my parents or consider helping them after everything they put me through. I know that the condition I laid out was essentially impossible for them to accept. They love my brother too much, and even if they've realized it was all his lies, I doubt they would ever hold him accountable the way they should. Today, my brother sent me a nasty text after my parents tried to contact me again. Here's what he wrote. *K sis, it's been a long time since I saw you, and I can tell you that every day without you in my life has been great. I heard that mom and dad reached out to you and that you gave them a crazy ultimatum. They are never going to go through with it, you know that, right? They clearly never loved you, and they will never do anything to hurt me. I admit that I did lie about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time since then, so stop being so selfish and try to move on from the past. You are unmarried and childless anyway, so why don't you just help them out by paying for their repairs and renovations around the house? Do the right thing and be a better daughter. Seeing that message felt like a stab to my chest. His audacity to dismiss my struggles and the conditions I set spoke volumes about his lack of empathy. His attempt to guilt-trip me, highlighting my unmarried and childless status, only added to the insensitivity. Fueled by frustration and a strong desire for justice, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands and reveal the truth that had been hidden for too long. I sat down to write an email to my parents and close relatives, sharing the painful details of my childhood and the unfair treatment I had endured in my family home. I described the strict and oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how they treated me compared to my twin brother. The email also delved into the malicious, completely untrue rumor my brother had spread about me in school, an act that led to severe consequences and affected my reputation. I recounted how my parents had kicked me out, and how, had it not been for my grandmother, I might not be alive today. Toward the end, I included a screenshot of the message from my brother, where he admitted to lying about me. It was a clear confession that I hoped would expose the lies that had persisted for too long. I sent the email just an hour ago, and I know that all hell will break loose once my parents and brother read it. I'll update you next about how my family reacts. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. As you can imagine, my family erupted after receiving the email. My parents faced criticism from relatives who were previously unaware of the extent of the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out to me, apologizing for not being there for me and expressing their shock at what I had endured. In response, my brother and my parents sent me a barrage of abusive and threatening text messages. I decided to reach out to a lawyer, who sent them a cease and desist notice, warning them not to contact me further, otherwise, they would face serious legal consequences. I guess this scared them straight because they stopped contacting me. My grandmother thinks I did the right thing by letting everyone know what happened and supports me 100%. She is the only person who matters to me, so I'm glad she has my back. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that everything in my life is going well. Professionally, my content writing business has been flourishing. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts continue to roll in, solidifying my position as a respected figure in my field. I am as close to my grandmother as ever. I took a 1-week break from work recently just to spend quality time with her. She's been getting into gardening and educated me about various flowers and herbs in her garden. The moments I share with her, whether sharing meals, engaging in heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, are some of my most cherished memories. My family has not contacted me since they received the letter from my lawyer, and I'm relieved they are staying away. Personally, I've started going to therapy to work on healing myself.